Well, Wednesday, November 2nd was just like any other Wednesday. I'd gone to work and, at the shop, and I'd got the guys all lined out on what they needed to do. So they were all working, and I wasn't doing a whole lot. It was kind of slow, and I had a little project from home, and I started working on that. Around 10:30, I guess, I kind of felt funny, so I went in the office and sat down, and the only thing I remember is my vision kind of got real pixely, if you can explain it. I started losing my vision. And my wife said that I had just got stiff. A customer had come in the door, and she saw me slumping in a chair. So she helped me down to the floor. One of my newest employee had come in, and he looked at me, and I'm starting to turn purple and blue, and he's feeling for a pulse, and I have no pulse. And so he decides to start doing CPR. So he'd never done it before. He'd watched a video recently. So he gets me positioned and starts, doing CPR. And he said, I just started pushing as hard as I could till stuff started popping and cracking, and just kept going, And he said it was popping and cracking. And so basically, the customer ended up taking off, running down the street to the EMT office, which is just a couple of doors down. And the fire department came, and then the EMTs came, and they, from what I understand, were having a real hard time with me. They almost lost me off the gurney because they had to get it in the front door around the counter and got me up on it, and then I almost fell off the gurney when they were trying to get me out of the office. And they got me into the ambulance, and they were trying to hook up stuff, and I just wouldn't stabilize. And, they waited there for a long time, and Nathan and Nina basically were checking on me, and they just said, this is not good. He's not doing well. And I think my blood pressure was something like 60/40, and my oxygen content was about 40%, and I was basically non-responsive. So they got me to the hospital and into the ER, and I guess Nathan must have called the church, and somebody.
I did.
Did Nina text you? Nina texted you, right? Yeah. Nina texted Obi and said, hey, Bob's headed to the hospital and it's not good. And so you texted the church, right?
Nina, I was in a meeting, and Nina sent me a text message, and she says, Bob is in the ER. So I just thought that Bob probably did something he shouldn't do, because Bob usually does that. And so my plan was to go into the ER and give him a hard time. So then I go into the ER, and a couple of doctors running around, and I said, I am looking for Bob Romine, and they sent me to a particular room, and that's where the doctors were rushing towards. And so I see Bob on the gurney with a tube down his throat, and I go, yeah, I'm not gonna be giving Bob a hard time today. And so they had a couple of doctors come around, and so I go look for Nina and try to tell Nina what's going on. And at this point, I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and contact the elders of the church and let them know what's going on. So I tried to call a couple of them. I tried to call Jay. He didn't pick up his phone. Then I tried to call Doug, and Doug didn't pick up the phone. So I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send 911 text message to everybody. And so that's when I got the call. What's going on? And so we go back into the room with Nina, and the doctors are all around. They have a cardiologist, they have a pulmonologist, and the ER doctor. And at this point, they're saying, you're not really sure what's going on. He probably has clot in his lungs, and possibility of giving you a medication. And part of the deal was the medication can kill you, the medication can help you, or the medication can do nothing, but we had to do something. And interesting word that the doctor used at that point with Nina was that Bob was actively dying. And so
it's not a good thing. Nina hit the ER room. She was met by the chaplain of the hospital, and the chaplain, they took her into a little room off the ER, and that's not a pretty good sign, when they go in there. So she was I want to say she was pretty much in shock at this point.
I think she was expecting you to be doing better, and I don't think that she was ready to find out that you had a tube in your throat and that you were almost dying. So
basically, they had me on life support for a couple of days. I know one of the the ladies, one of the lung nurses, she had said, I was on you for 4 hours, begging you to keep enough oxygen to your brain.
They had you, every time they put you on the vent, your oxygen level came down, so they had to disconnect you from the vent and then manually get air to you, and then they'll try to put you back again, and your oxygen will go down. And she did this for 4 hours.
They told me later, one of the nurses came in and said, that they lost you completely somewhere between 5, 6, 7 times that they had to resuscitate me. So the actively dying part was, not good. They told Nina to call the family. Basically, they gave me less than an hour to live.
Yeah, I was in the room when the doctor was talking to her and said, things don't look good, get ready. And then I think during the night too, one of the doctors, we have what we call an EICU, where there's a doctor in Kansas City that can look in on the patient. And I guess that one of the doctors had told Nina too that at some point your heart was going to slow down, and then she should be prepared for that. So the incredible thing about this is that during all this time, while all this is happening, the waiting room is getting filled with people from the church. Bob goes up to the ICU. The waiting room in the ICU is full of church family. I think one of the things that they asked Nina was if she had any family that she wanted them to contact. It's like, I don't have any family close by, but there'd be a lot of church people here. And so in the hallway, in the waiting room, you just saw people getting together and praying. And during this time, while we were praying for Bob, the kids at Covenant Academy find that they're being told that Bob is actively dying. So they all chose to stop school, get down to the main sanctuary, and every kid in the school on their faces praying and crying out to God. And so at this time, I hear about it in my prayer, and it changed my prayer from Bob, let Bob live, to God, if Bob dies, I'm not going to be the one to explain to the kids that they prayed and Bob didn't make it. And so there was an incredible amount of faith that came in just even from finding out the kids were praying. People were praying in the hallway, people were praying in the room. I think everybody that came into the room laid hands on you and prayed for you. And so it was just an incredible moment of the house of God, of the family. You always talk about, we as a church are a family, but when something like that happens, then you actually see the family come together and begin to seek God's face for.
And it wasn't just the local church either.
This thing
went global. We hit more prayer chains than imaginable. I mean, it went overseas. It went to England. It went to Sweden. There were 2 different big churches in Africa. I mean, it went everywhere in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, technology is amazing.
It was amazing what happened, and everybody just stopped and prayed. And of course, I don't know what was going on. I'm pretty much out of it. But somewhere around Saturday afternoon, I'm going to say afternoon. It might have been morning. I kind of came to a little bit and realized that, hey, I'm in the hospital and I got a whole bunch of tubes in me and I got this thing down my throat and I don't really know what's going on,
I think it was Saturday afternoon that they took the tube out.
Yeah. And the doctor came in, and this was kind of strange too, because he came in, he says, I think we're going to take is that a trach tube or whatever?
Yeah.
He said, we're going to take this out and see how you do. And so he reaches down in there and slides it out, and somebody was right beside me, and I just started talking to him like this. And the doctor looked at me and he says, you can talk? And I said, yeah, am I not supposed to? And he said, well, he started explaining to me, these things do a lot of damage. They can tear up your vocal cords, the valve in your throat between your swallowing and your lungs. And he said, we had tubes down there sucking fluid out and everything else. He says, there should be swelling, something going on, and I didn't feel anything, so.
Well, we were also equally amazed because we did not know how long Bob had been down, so we don't know how long Bob was without oxygen. During the time that he was in the ambulance, he was in the 40s and 50s, his O2 saturation, and then when he was in the emergency room, keeping him at 80 was a miracle. And so nobody knew what state that Bob would be in when he got around to it. So when they pulled the tube out and Bob was talking, your memory was intact. Because you even remembered that you were supposed to have a doctor's appointment. You remember the date and what time. And for me, listening to that, it was like, this is an incredible miracle, because not only is he breathing on his own, your memory is completely intact. Your brain function is completely intact. It was just amazing just to see that happen.
There were some trials. I mean, honestly, my hands didn't want to work real well, and I was tired a lot, and of course I had all these tubes in, so I couldn't really move and function very much, and I was getting stiff and soreness from being in the bed so long, and of course breathing, keeping that oxygen level up was still difficult. That was probably the thing that was the most concerning. So every hour I was doing these breathing treatments and then breathing tests and on and on and on, and slowly but surely it all started coming back. I mean, my kidneys had kind of shut down and they started coming back. My liver started coming back. So things had, I was not in good shape because everything was really going down quickly.
Some of your lab values were poor, but you could see each day that you were there, the lab values were coming back up and getting back up to normal. It was, your family came down to see you. I know Robbie was
in California with work,
and having to find a flight to get here. He got here on time, and I think it was just good to see family.
Casey and David came in. Casey, she came in, but then she immediately went to the shop and took over the shop. She'd worked there before, and so it was like her place was to help keep the shop going while Nina wasn't there. So that really made a big difference. The nurses were absolutely wonderful. The doctors were coming in, and you could just see the look on their faces. They were kind of just amazed. They'd always come in with big smiles, and this. I remember one when I sat up, and the nurse came and said, "You're sitting up," and I said, "Yeah, it feels pretty good,"
Yeah, and it was amazing. And people stayed with Nina, made sure that she wasn't alone.
I think there was someone with me almost all the time, and I think it must have been, I don't know if it was Saturday night or Sunday night. Might have been Saturday night. I told Nina, I said, "You know what? You need to go home and sleep in your bed. I'm okay." And she finally gave in and said, "Okay, I'm going home." It had been tough on her.
Yeah, it was tough on her.
So, but things kept getting better. I mean, they let me eat, and pretty soon I'm ordering my own food, and and they actually took me out of the ICU a day before they thought they would, and put me down on the ward, and then. I don't know if it was that day or the next day, I actually got up and I made one trip down the hall and back. Walking was actually a little tough. It was tough to get my balance back, and I kind of fumbled around a little bit with that. But
what day did you go home?
I went home. Well, it was 9 days later, whatever that is. I think it was a Thursday. I guess it was a Thursday. Must have been something like that. Anyway, when they finally released me, they said, "Do you want to wear a wheelchair?" And I said, "No, I think I just want to walk." And I walked out of there, took the elevator down 4 floors and walked out. And there was a little nurse that was new, and she had not seen me. And she was a new Christian, and she kind of had a feel for things. And I actually got to sit and talk to her and say, "You know what, spiritual things are very real."
Very real.
And I know you haven't been here the whole time, but I basically came in here dead, and I'm walking out here 9 days later, and I'm perfectly healed. I received a miracle healing from God, and and it is a miracle. And even now, when I go back, people are amazed. Here he is.
I see the chaplain. She's like, "How is Bob doing?" I'm like, "Bob came to church on Sunday." She's like, "Wow, I can't believe this. Yeah. This is amazing."
We had Becky had gone into the hospital soon after, and she was up in ICU. So after church, we went to the hospital and saw her. And on the way out, Nina looked in, and the chaplain lady was there. And so we went and talked to her and saw her. She had no idea who I was, but she recognized Nina, and she was just, it was so amazing, man. She was so excited. It was incredible. But, I to this day, I still have a lot of questions. I don't know why God chose me to give that healing to I'm thoroughly blessed that he did. I don't know what he has in store, but obviously he has something in store. And we have family issues and business issues, and those are a little tough to deal with. But God wasn't ready for me yet.
But that happened stirred up faith in people. I think people. We were supposed to have 39 hours of prayer that weekend, and it started a little bit early, and people didn't give up. I mean, the point where even the kids came and prayed together. It's like you can look at the kids and say, you can never say that you never saw God move. Right. You can never say you never saw a miracle. And just the faith of it was almost like it was a family event that happened, and the family rose up to the occasion, quote unquote, and sought the face of God. And, like I said, we don't know why it happened, but like what I tell you now, I said, when you say Jesus is a resurrection, it's no longer just words anymore. It's like you are a living proof that He is the resurrection and He's the life, and
exactly,
it's amazing.
Yeah, those kids prayed that first day. They prayed for 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
in worship.
And
these are little guys. I mean, what are they? First, second grade.
First grade to yeah,
little guys. And I was so excited when I got to go to church that first Sunday back, and I just wanted to be with all those little guys and thank them and hug them. And I hope I think they caught something out of that.
I think they did.
I think they'll remember it.
I think when they pray, it's a little different.
Yeah.
You know what? We prayed for Bob. Yeah. Bob is alive, so I can pray and believe.
Pray and believe. Yeah. That's good. I guess it was probably Monday. I woke up early, like 4 o'clock Monday morning, and I got my phone, and I mean, it's been a long time, and I kind of opened up my phone, and I opened up emails, and in the emails was, this person's sick, this person caught himself on fire, and this person's mom's going to die, and I just started trying to encourage people. Man, keep praying, hang on to what God's doing. We got His attention right now. Keep praying. And I know the guy that caught on fire, he had breathed flames down into his lungs.
Was that Becky's?
Yeah. And he wasn't a Christian, but he kind of found out through the grapevine that God had healed me, and he asked for prayer. And I prayed for him, And then the next day I find out, hey, you know what? His burns aren't quite as bad as we thought they were. It's like, all right, God, you got this one too. I love it.
Stacy had a family member that was like that too. Yeah. And then I told you the other day I had a guy that was agnostic at best, and after I told him your story, he was like, okay, well, I hope you can prove me wrong. I said, well, it's not me proving you wrong. I don't have anything to do with it. Jesus is who we pray to. And he said, well, I'm not talking about you. I'm hoping that He proves me wrong. I said, okay, so I prayed for him. So the story of the miracle just people hearing that, it's like you can't really deny. You can't really say, well, maybe it didn't happen, because there's all kind of proof, everywhere. It wasn't like you were playing in the hospital. Yeah. So
there was enough witnesses and enough doctors. That'll flat tell you. It was nice to see the hospital staff. I mean, when I walked out of there, it was like a victory.
Yeah.
They don't always
get those victories.
They don't always get that victory. They lose some, and it's tough. It's hard, and to be able to, walk out of there and look at them and see the smiles on their faces, and in the background they're high-fiving each other or something, because it was a good deal. It was a miracle.
But I think it was a great testimony too, with the hospital staff seeing people praying.
Yes.
And whether in the room or in the hallway, on the camera, it's like everywhere you turned around, there was somebody praying, and it was amazing. And
in the film that happened on Sunday morning with the kids, there was about a 20-minute long thing that they put out on YouTube. And Kimmy came up to me like a week later and said, you got like 6,000 hits on that thing. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So how many other people, got blessed by that deal, or were able to tell somebody a
get encouraged,
like that, So it's really quite exciting. I feel blessed to be here. I could have been anything from like this to dead and somewhere in between, you know, paralyzed.
At some point during that time, I was like, maybe, because I was supposed to go on a trip.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to probably cancel this trip because the way it's looking, you know, my medical side was the way it's looking. I think we're probably gonna bury Bob on Tuesday. And then I left for that trip on Sunday, and you didn't have that tubing. You were doing great. I think you guys were watching the Cowboys play.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That's
Nina's team.
fault.
But nobody was like my point guy. I was texting him and letting him, you know, push it out. But it was fun to be able to.
Yeah, for you to be texting, it's like you're not supposed to be texting. Because I think even at one point they weren't even sure if that tube was going to come out. So because the next thing they usually do is if that tube can't come out, then they kind of go there and put a trach in and then probably transfer it to an acute care facility. But the fact that that tube came, you were in Wednesday, Thursday, so Saturday, that tube was out. Wow.
Yeah, there was one of the nurses was in there that had basically done all the sucking all the fluid out. And she said, "You wouldn't believe the stuff I pulled out of there." I said, "Honey, I've been a mechanic for 45 years. There's probably parts of an old Buick you sucked out of there." And she got a big laugh out of it, you know. And so it was really good. I mean, we were able to keep it light, you know, after things kind of settled down. I know it was really touch and go for a couple of days there. But
yeah, at one point, we talked about it, but at one point, Bob was coming around to, I don't know if it was like Thursday or Friday. You know, he was trying to say something, so we gave him a board to write stuff in. And I think some of the family members were expecting him to write like this great picture of heaven or something. And after about 5 minutes of trying to figure out what Bob was trying to say, it was he wanted to pee. And everybody just lost it laughing, and you could tell in that moment that he was going to make it.
I really needed to pee, though. At least I thought I did.
But we're glad it was just pee. Some of us were expecting like this deep word, but the fact they had to pee, I was like, all right, things are going to be good. God is on the throne. And to see Nina smile, and actually she was laughing, and to see Robbie laugh, and some of the family members, it was like, all right, God is on the throne.
Well, there's a deep part to it. I mean, there's definitely a spiritual experience that went along with this, and we won't share it now, but you know, hopefully we'll get to do this again, and we'll talk about that a little bit because it's quite in depth and quite interesting too.
Yeah.